so the story goes. Where do I get my hats? Oh, I have a hatter friend, a milliner too. Her great grandfather could easily have become a totally mad hatter. I think he must have been bonkers when I met him. Yep, there probably would have been some mercury around during his early years as an apprentice hat maker. My own father remembers buying hats from his grandson, who was a great hat maker, but even a better storyteller. Let me tell you one of his many stories about a very special hat maker and an elf adventure into Wonderland to discover a very special hat. While sipping tea at the palace of a busy bee named Alice, she placed in my left hand her rolled up map of Wonderland. So off I went in my walking boots with my tent to find the entrance, a little hole. Well, not that little, the size that a rabbit might make rather than a mole. I asked a cow, I asked a bird, and both told me Wonderland does not exist. So I replied, oh, that's absurd. You might as well say that this isn't a map, this isn't a tent, and that you are not a cow, and you are not a bird. Wonderland exists, it has to be true. I have a hatter to find, and a white rabbit too. At which the cow flew, and the bird replied, moo. So I sat. I spread my map of Wonderland flat on the grass, just as the shadow of two large ears passed. Come back! Come back! I know you have time. Please, help me find a friend of mine. I must arrive before his tea, so that he has time for me. Then, suddenly, the ears both vanished down a hole, one built by a rabbit, not by a mole. So, into that dark, dank hole I jumped, into the stillness of earth's pressed holes, tunnels full of contorted shoots and searching roots, rear ends of worms, and front ends too, all at play in their clay, in the damp, until one worm turned around, saw me, and whispered, "Boo!" Well, I jumped in amazement, never having played boo, well, not with a worm before. "I am very lost," I said to the worm. "Can you help me, please? I'd love to play boo with you, but I am a bit in a rush, you see. I need to get to Wonderland, and soon. I need to find a friend of mine. It's awfully close to his tea time, and if I'm not there prompt at 3, I'll miss the cakes, I'll miss the tea, I'll miss the chat, I'll miss the dance, and what is worse, I'll miss the chance to pick the hat which suits my head and keeps me warm when I'm in bed." The worms seemed to smile, handed me one of their promotional t-shirts, and started to sing. "We will, we can, we should, we might, we really think we may. We ought, so let us make a wish and magic you his way." They then all waved at me, and with that warm worm whoosh and their little waves, I found myself outside and sitting in the sun again. No rain as such, no clouds either, and the sky was missing too. No sky, but just a very solid looking wooden ceiling above me, very high. A set of chairs around me, hard to put into words. A drip may be coming onto my head, or two, of tea, and oh my word, I looked up to see my friend the Hatter looking down at me. "Hello, hello, my dear friend Elf. You're looking in the best of health. Are you thirsty? Have you come for tea? Or would you like a hat from me?" Some tea," I said. A cake, and just maybe the perfect hat just made for me. Cosy, bright, as warm as can be, colourful too, and good company. Some magic inside it to help when I'm lost. Oh, and not too expensive, a reasonable cost. Your head's on the small side of middle, I see. It leans looking up, probably at me. "I've hats for all sizes," he says, "and shapeses of heads, and hats to keep heads in all cosy beds. I've hats for the wise, and the foolish as well. Both are the same size, but neither can tell. I've hats for the regals, the downs, and the ups. I've knitted a couple for teapots and cups. Your size is no limit. I've a hat for the moon. Made one for a hedge just yesterday, who really needs a prune." "However," remarked the Hatter, with the greatest concern, "you have shrunk, my little friend, and your head has become very small. I will have to ask these little elves to magic you all tall. For my measures won't measure to such low degrees, hence I rarely make hats for beetles or bees." Up at table height, one elf, then 2 elves, then 3 elves more, all played pass the bottle, straight into my hands. I asked, "What's this for?" "A note for me? A message tucked inside?" Well, as I pulled the message out, I rose again in size, and there, before my eyes, was an instant collection of hat designs, to my surprise. This hat will suit you," said my friend the Hatter. No, it's far too small." "Then," said the Hatter, "I'll create this one instead," he said. "Oh, no, really, thank you, but that's far too tall." This hat," he exclaimed with great excitement. Fine, but really full of feathers." This hat," he said again. "Oh, useful. Very useful, I'm sure, but for all weathers. This hat. He seemed to be getting rather sort of interested in me saying yes at some stage, but I was into getting the hat I wanted. "Most wonderful," I said, very, very politely. "Most neat, but very big. Maybe I'd start bumping into a lot of things when walking down the street." This hat," he said with great pride. Well, it's a bit flat, no room to sort of hide inside. Maybe it could do with a few more curves." This hat? Oh, I'm sure it would be perfect in autumn. Perhaps for birds." This hat," he said, sliding one over to me. "Oh, no! Ooh, far too much tongue." This hat, This hat? No, no, no. It's made all wrong. Well then, this hat. This hat. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. But far too wide. But with really lovely stars and moons around it, its outside. This hat. This hat. Well, I said, it might be all right for somebody other than me, perhaps for some TV character like Arthur Daly. This hat. This hat, he said with a grin. Oh, without doubt, most perfectly curled by you, I can see, but maybe best down the Old Bailey. It's just not for me. This hat. This hat, he said with a very, 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 very great amount of pride. Oh, I looked at it twice, 3 times. I said, look at it. Look, it's so full of colour. That is the hat. It is like no other. Hatter, my good friend. My journey's at a happy end. That's the hat to fit my head, to keep me warm whilst I'm in bed. Well, for those of you who think my story true, I lift my hat from head to you. But if there are some listening who, like their bird, think my story is absurd, I've proof that would convince that cow in this collection here and now. This hat will suit you, said my friend, but it was far too small. Then try this one instead, he said, but that was far too tall. This hat? This hat? That design was too full of feathers. This hat. Yeah, that hat. The one for all weathers. This hat. Most wonderful. And most neat. But yes, I would have been bumping into everything when walking down the street. This hat. Yeah, flat as a pancake, needing far more curves. This hat. Autumn fashion, but in spring, nah. Leave that one for the birds. This hat. Whew, I was right. Way too much pong in that. This hat. Sorry, totally made all wrong. This hat. One of his favourites, obviously. Remember? Far too wide, but I did like the fun stars, the fun moons around its outside. This hat. Yep. Certainly still think it's far too Arthur Daly. This hat. Perfect. But, as I said, down the Bailey. But this hat. Yeah. This is so full of colour. This is that hat, and it is like no other. My hat was adapted and performed at the first Presteigne Poetry Festival by Grant, and behind the scenes and digital screens for this production was Barrett at Little People Books Media. Thank you, Barrett. Ruth Trent delved through the design books of head fads and fashions to keep our sou'westers and fascinators in full rhythm. And the inimitable Peter Scott joined us for the Education and Closure Fund. Thank you, Peter. And Eddie Champion says hello. Meanwhile, from the banks of the Mersey, the boards of the Stratford Shakespeare Theatre, and Life Beyond Life, we once again welcome and appreciate the ongoing contributions of the Joyce Latham Estate. It's worth mentioning the sponsors in readiness for our next application to them. On Matters Beyond Hatters, we are ever indebted to the wonderful Kay Wilton for bringing our hat and costume designs to life. And now, onto the little screen for you. Big screen time soon, Kay. Don't go away. Our colourful yarns, balls and twists of wool, give a big hand to Julia and all at First for Yarns. The legend of Elf's hat remains ever threaded to your kind contributions. For dragons, busy bees, curly bells, cloaks and hatliners, no one finer than Sandra. BookPod's Purple Rain will be out of wraps soon. Fingal's Grotto, Teletubbies, Teletubbyland in fact. Give a hand please to John Mitchell on Magic Pencil and Smooth Fade. Everyone from BookPod to Eddie Champion sends their love. How long is it? Oh, an arm and a leg long with a bell at the end and no shortcuts. Yep, I can remember actually answering that question. And please, under all that colour of Elf's hat is the work of art which keeps the warmth in our hearts for Elf and the warmth of his head whilst in bed. Thank you, Marilyn's mum. Our Mercury Free Zone, thanks to Dave on safeguarding during conservation work. The angels are with you and Linda for always in our land of wonder. Well, some keep off the sun, some keep out the rain. Applause please for the curators and conservators of World of Water, who let us dive into their archives and make it upstream to some pretty cool images and hats. We'll be back to do a story on the world of house hats and roof cutters soon. Out of the blue, a big thank you to Marion for the crafted hat that almost as colourful as Elf's hat. Full steam ahead and keep those throttles and whistles waking up the model world. No story at Little People Books can be told without the support of its leading characters, BookPod and Elf. There's a wealth of new stories ahead to keep hats and heads in bed and out of bed in good dreamland health. Steady cams, ready to roll, but not rock anymore. Your photography, Solene and Valentin, animation skills do rock, however, and without your help, we'd still be bloggers and scribes. In this credit beat for the second time are two who can chart the strategy of a story from an idea not yet scribed on a napkin. Peter Scott and John Mitchell. Thank you. Without you, all this doesn't happen. So remember to click all the buttons available to you and stay in touch with us. Whose book is it anyway? It's your life, so it's your book to share as much as it's ours to create. We're here to story and get you up on the story floor and tell it how it should be told. And thanks for all the feathers. They are like gold to us. And for those of you into waves, you'll have noticed water bubbling up and swishing around our stories at Little People Books. Well, that's because we donate our profits to the World of Water charity, who deserve a big hand and a lot of support for their work in education and research. In turn, World of Water would like to thank all the pupils and teachers of Cransley School for their constant fundraising work that helps so many charities like World of Water. And thank you to you for being our audience. We feel more at home in the same world story when you are there with us. And we appreciate your company here, probably more than you'll ever get to know. Maybe. And so the story grows. And now over on Little People Books Media, your adventures in space continue. Come and join us on the adventure. Bring your own vibrance and enthusiasm. Maybe download a free colouring sheet for yourself and just bring your own picnic of colour. Catch up again soon.